For the INFJ, emotional wounds have a habit of hiding away for long periods of time, and then popping back up when least expected. With the combination of introverted intuition and extroverted feeling, emotions can sometimes be difficult to process, often leading to unhealed, subconscious trauma tucked away in the subconscious without the INFJ even knowing. Welcome, or welcome back, psychos! Today's video is all about how an INFJ can tell if they have some unhealed emotional trauma. Before we get into it, we'd love it if you liked and subscribed to our channel, as well as to click the post notification bell so you never miss a video. Number 1. You don't have steady emotions. Are you the type of INFJ who gets noticeably upset over sappy rom-coms? Or maybe you feel yourself getting irritated quickly over the small things. Besides the fact that this rare type is an empath at heart, these could be signs that an INFJ could have an underlying emotional wound. An emotional wound or unhealed emotional trauma is described as actual damage to an emotion that was caused by a past traumatic situation or experience such as a heartbreak, emotional abuse, and betrayal. Whether these emotional outbursts and intensities are expressed on the outside or not, some INFJs with unhealed emotional trauma experience this battle with their emotions every single day. The tricky thing is that both emotional wounds and introverted intuition can cause people to subconsciously relate to the emotions of others and what they witness, such as in movies or books. This ultimately leaves some INFJs unsure as to why they're taking these outer emotions and making them their own. Number 2. You've lost interest in things you've once enjoyed. One of the most noticeable signs that you are dealing with unresolved emotional trauma that is popping back up from the past is that you no longer enjoy the little things in life. INFJs normally strive on the little things in life to keep them going and to give them a glimmer of beauty within their big picture thinking. Maybe it's something as simple as not listening to music as much anymore, or you've stopped singing along to the radio. Or maybe it's the unexplainable feeling of simple things, like going to take a walk in the park or talking to a neighbor becoming a complete drag. Unhealed emotional wounds tend to suck the fun right out of life, no matter which personality type you have. The best way for an INFJ to know if this is an emotional wound popping back up is if they feel as if their life is controlling them, rather than feeling like they're in control of their choices. Psychological trauma will take over the INFJ's subconscious, becoming so distracting that it will make it difficult to concentrate and stay motivated in everyday tasks. For the INFJ specifically, this can easily become a toxic cycle of canceling plans and ditching goals, to stay at home only to relish in the repeating emotional wounds even more. Number 3. Feelings of unworthiness and hopelessness. INFJs are already known for being rather hard on themselves with self-criticism and unrealistic expectations. Although these wounds often hide away in the subconscious quietly, when they come out disguised as sudden feelings of self-hatred and negative self-talk, they become a little more obvious. Emotional wounds can also have extreme effects on the specific sector in life that the emotional wound originally spawned from. For example, if an INFJ went through a bad breakup or divorce, it may create a different perspective of marriage and relationships, leading them to subconsciously put up a block to avoid getting hurt, or stay stuck in the feeling of being unworthy of a relationship out of fear. Unfortunately, until this attitude changes, this block will cut out any act of giving or receiving love, which then leads to more unworthy feelings. Number 4. You're easily annoyed by people. Sure, the INFJ has a short social battery life and a short attention span for small talk, but this doesn't mean they're necessarily the type to get annoyed easily thanks to their curious nature. However, when past emotional wounds have yet to be dealt with, sometimes INFJs can feel on edge with people to a degree that isn't familiar to their character. Sometimes it's simple behaviors of others that rub them the wrong way, or they may feel more sensitive to comments or remarks that never seemed to affect them before. The worst part about it is that since these wounds suck the fun and happy qualities out of life, INFJs will even find themselves annoyed with the people they once surrounded themselves with. This is especially true if the psychological trauma was related to the betrayal of someone close to them, as it can change their entire perspective on other relationships in their lives. Number 5. You have bad memories on replay. INFJs are the worst for ruminating about certain thoughts, feelings, or ideas they have, sometimes to the point of driving themselves crazy. So, when it comes to emotional wounds, INFJs can sometimes have a hard time pinpointing what it is that's left unresolved and which past emotional event is causing their emotional turmoil. However, other times, that's not exactly the case. This sign of an INFJ emotional wound is the most obvious, and that's when these repetitive thoughts won't leave the INFJ alone. If someone with this personality type becomes completely absorbed in thinking about an unresolved trauma with constant reminders of that event, they can be sure they are dealing with an emotional wound. This inability to forget the emotional event is actually a sign that the INFJ should acknowledge the experience and recognize that it affected you, which are some of the first steps to healing. Plus, this constant reminder also forces the INFJ to think about the situation through many different states of mind throughout the day, sometimes resulting in a better understanding of the situation and the reasoning behind it. Number 6. You feel numb. Living life feeling dull with no vigor or excitement for the future is a hard way for any INFJ to live. But that's the reality for when deep psychological trauma is at play. Similar to the feeling of not wanting to do the things they once enjoyed, INFJs can become so subconsciously overwhelmed that their outer feeling functions and introverted intuition become stunned. The brain has an unbelievable ability to defer stress in different ways to make it easier to manage and process. And this is exactly what the INFJ brain is doing when they shut out any new emotions. It's as if the INFJ brain quiets the overload of painful feelings and emotions by making them feel nothing at all to avoid further psychological distress. Sure, it may work momentarily for the INFJ that so often feels everything from everyone, and the INFJ may no longer feel sad, but they also definitely don't feel happy. It's like existing with no emotions or interest for others' emotions, which is not a good place for the INFJ to be for long periods of time. The worst of it all, this numbness can even take away the INFJ's natural ability to daydream by replacing their imaginative creations with blankness. Number 7. You overthink and overanalyze. The self-doubt that comes with carrying around an emotional wound day in and day out can cause INFJs to overanalyze every unrelated area of their lives to avoid being hurt again. Yes, INFJs are natural over-observers with the need to think things through every step of the way. But when it becomes extreme, it could actually be a defense mechanism. Most INFJs see it as a means of learning from their mistakes and saving themselves from being hurt, and it may sound like a smart precaution to take. However, in this case, overanalyzing can actually end up causing more confusion and discrepancies that were actually there in the first place. In fact, this habit can cause an INFJ to become seriously thrown off by the little curveballs that life throws at them, while leading the INFJ to struggle even more with unrealistic expectations of themselves, partners, events, and decisions. Number 8. Your sleep schedule is sporadic. With constant thoughts and ideas racing around their busy brains at all times, it's not rare for the INFJ to have troubles with sleeping. But tossing and turning at night with racing thoughts is also a clear sign of stress and emotional turmoil, so this is where things can get a little tricky. A good rule of thumb is to keep in mind that emotional wounds can also come in the form of oversleeping, sleeping at the wrong times, waking up feeling exhausted, and waking up multiple times throughout the night. For example, an INFJ with unhealed emotional wounds may experience heightened anxiety at night, feelings of helplessness and despair to start a new day, extreme loneliness and isolation, and having nightmares while sleeping. If that's not bad enough, when the INFJ is experiencing a sporadic sleep schedule, no matter which sleeping issue they deal with, it can actually make the emotional wounds and their overall mood worse. Number 9. Your mind feels tangled. Brain fog, spaced out, head in the clouds, whatever you want to call it, INFJs are probably a little more familiar feeling and seem rather aloof compared to other personality types. However, a tangled and mixed up mind is something that INFJs aren't overly accustomed to. So, when an INFJ feels seriously mentally absent on a day-to-day basis, or they find themselves often getting confused and feeling unfocused, they most certainly could be distracted by an emotional wound. For an INFJ dealing with psychological trauma, it's normal to slip into mental chatter that's filled with negative self-talk, self-doubt, jealousy, and the inability to put things in order. This is not only distracting, but extremely exhausting. The best way for the INFJ to untangle a foggy noggin is to cautiously sort through and write down every thought as often as possible. With introverted intuition at hand, the INFJ brain has a habit of releasing things from their mental banter once they've talked about it or written it down. Brilliant, right? Number 10. You realize something's wrong. INFJs never want to seem like there's anything wrong, and sometimes they take it so far as to convince themselves that everything's okay in the process. When the INFJ eventually finds themselves questioning if there is something wrong with them following a traumatic life event, they're probably right. Intuition goes a long way, and if an INFJ finally questions what could explain the negative mental turmoil they're experiencing, it's not uncommon for them to know deep down. For the INFJ, traumatic experiences and emotional encounters are seriously difficult to talk about due to the fear of being misunderstood. Often, it feels like they can't explain themselves to anyone because they don't even really know what's wrong. All they know is that they don't feel 100% like themselves, and you feel the pull to begin healing. Once an INFJ is serious about taking emotional wounds and their symptoms into our own hands, instead of avoiding or neglecting their feelings, it becomes easier to navigate their way towards healing. Well, psychos, that's it for today's video. So, let us know in the comments below if you think you have unhealed emotional wounds as an INFJ that you need to begin healing. Also, make sure to leave us a like, share with your friends, and also subscribe to our channel so that you never miss a video.